This game has been on my mind for all hours of my day, invading my dreams, and in my vocabulary now. I don't know if that skull on the death screen is calling me a chud, but it sounds like it, and I call everyone a chud. This game has been consuming me in the best way possible. It's been everywhere, and I've seen like so many people make videos on it already, but I want to talk about it, so let me get mine. I love this game.
I gotta get mine.
No!
Ultrakill has been in early access for quite a while. It's been out since September 3rd, 2020. But last year, February 24, 2025, they had an Ultra revamp update, which brought a big surge to the game. It was a visual overhaul for the existing levels, and there's another update coming for Act 3. They said early this year, they don't have an exact date yet. And the community's so hyped because the past acts were so good in so many ways. Ultrakill was created by Hokkaido and a team of people that helped develop the game, and published by New Blood. They have a museum level with the models of the enemies and weapons in different development stages, and a theater room showing the journey of creating the game. And a big thank you to everyone that worked alongside Hokkaido. And they have a cool little chess area, clearly just because they could. Cool little touch. With that, it's easy to see the absolute love and care this game was in the hands of. If Hokkaido wasn't cool enough, did you know this motherfucker was the main composer for the soundtrack? Alongside 5 other guest composers, they created this masterpiece. And just for a second, get a sample of the taste of this. Fuck all of you for making such a good game for me to obsess over. So today I'm not going to talk about the events that happen in the game, but I'm going to talk about the events that happen before the game even starts. Ultrakill takes place in a timeline where the First World War starting in 1912 never ended. A 200-year war that started as regular trench warfare went into fighting each other with machines powered by blood. The machines that they created for this warfare were the guttermen, gutter tanks, and then the earth movers. Earth movers were solar dependent and so huge that they had full cities on them that people lived on and basically used it as a new surface of the earth. If that could tell you the absolute size of these motherfuckers. And this era was called the Final War. And nearing the end of this time, in 2112, V1, the machine that we play as, was created as a prototype. This blood-fueled war machine with fast movement speeds was made to combat the Earth movers. But the creation of V1 was a little too late because the Earth movers ended up stopped moving. The reason why that happened is because they produced so much smoke and ash that they blocked out the sun, causing what they called the long night. Because of these environmental changes, the war couldn't keep going, and the rest of humanity had to come together and figure out what they're gonna do from here on. And at this point in the timeline, during the end of the final war, I probably should mention this small detail, that God is dead. Maybe not in like a casket type way, but he called himself unfit to rule and vanished, abandoning humanity and heaven, leaving the council of angels in his stead. After seeing humanity slaughter each other with machines again and again and again, because God tried restarting everything over and over again, but he couldn't undo the free will he gave to humans. Disappointed by his creation and in despair by his own judgments, he hoped by disappearing his creations wouldn't be flawed anymore by his influence. And this placement in the timeline is backed up by the renaissance of King Minos and the failed rise of Sisyphus. When I was playing the game, I kept calling him Syphilis. My friends laughed at me about it, and you can too now. I'll get back to the war, but we have to talk about these guys first. King Minos was the judge of the last layer in hell, one of the many layers, but this layer was made specifically to send souls to different layers of hell depending on their sin. He was seen as a fair judge of hell. With God disappearing, King Minos looked at the souls of the last layer and saw people were getting punished for loving each other. Being who he was with no one watching, he made his move to rebel in compassion, turning the last layer into a beautiful city lit in neon lights. For souls to not live in fear but in the comfort of King Minos' mercy. But unfortunately, the Council of Angels took notice. They saw this as blasphemy on God's divine order, and they sent the archangel Gabriel to strip away his power and execute him. With Minos being so loved, his giant soul manifested into a massive physical form as a mindless husk, looking over the city of the skeletons and bodies of the souls he tried to protect, taken over by parasites. To ensure he couldn't return, his soul was ripped from his body and thrown into a flesh prison, which is in the gluttony layer, left to be locked away until someone like V1 could set him free. And with that, we could lead into the failed war of Sisyphus. He didn't hold a role like King Minos, but he was a prisoner for his deeds, condemned to roll a massive boulder up a steep hill in the greed layer for all eternity. There aren't any entries of what he did to get here, but you could probably go off with the Sisyphus that isn't in the game. But as a prisoner, he grew to embrace the struggle, and he used the physical labor of the punishment to build his strength. Alongside himself, he started training other prisoners in the greed layer, making them into his own followers. When the angels were distracted by the disappearance of God, Sisyphus made his move. He taught the other husks to fight, and he readied them for a war of his own. He wanted to overthrow heaven, and before he could make any major moves, Gabriel was sent down to behead him. Sisyphus was left to wander around the greed layer headless, with his soldiers being mutilated by their legs and their heads removed, being forced to carry boulders on their backs for eternity, becoming the Sisyphean insurrectionist. That being one of Sisyphus' soldiers that you come against in a boss fight on the greed layer. The angels feared the power that he possessed because he could turn into what they call the Prime Soul. In the same way they locked away King Minos, they put him in a flesh prison to prevent that from ever from happening. King Minos also has the ability to become a Prime Soul if he wasn't locked away, until V1 comes around to release both of them. Speaking of V1, it was still in its prototyping phase, but abandoned. There wasn't any need for such a war machine after all the Earth movers died out after the sun being covered. And with that, humans started a new peace era. What was left of humanity came together by the force of oncoming extinction. Because of the air being so polluted, they created the street cleaners to purify the air of the cities that people still lived in. Following that, V2 was created to be a peacekeeper after the failed V1 project. V1 had thin armor, while V2 had a more heavier, sturdier armor, but this trait took away the ability to heal in the middle of combat like V1. With the melee attack, V1 could heal itself, being called the Supreme Machine among others of its time. It can absorb blood through direct contact, the only con being the thin armor. But being a war machine wasn't V2's focus. It was to be security for civilians, to protect. But the full production of other V2s failed because of the costs. They went for other cheaper alternatives like drones to be made for surveillance, leaving V2 to be the only one that was produced. Humans went on an expedition down through hell as a last resort to find new energy resources, being that all non-blood resources of fuel were completely gone on Earth. In their dive into hell, they made tunnels and facilities so that they could funnel back the resources safely into the surface. Humans then repurposed the machines from the surface to help the expedition in hell, like the street cleaners. They used them to clear the way for the explorers, and sentries, they're basically like snipers, to defend them. They weren't looking for coal or regular human-known resources. They were looking for hell energy. They saw that hell was the source of almost infinite power. They quickly learned that traversing through hell wasn't exactly just a place, but a sentient organism. The walls were its flesh. The air had a malicious thickness to it, and the inhabitants were definitely alive. They noticed the doors were moving. The husks would teleport in the room and play with them. It is said that hell actually enjoyed humans coming into its doors. They were new things to toy with other than the already broken souls that were boring. And then the project collapsed. The surface lost communication with the humans in hell. And then it's said to believe that hell grew bored of the new inhabitants, then reached through the man-made tunnels to the surface. And then shortly after that, all of humanity was gone. And all that remained were the machines that started to descend into hell looking for fuel, along with V1 and V2. What you'll notice going through the layers of hell are terminals. You see them when you start a level or when you go into a boss fight. They were created by humans when the expedition was in motion, built as high-speed transportation systems. When humans were trying to transfer things from hell to the surface or other layers, these terminals will make it easier. They go from a physical matter, turn into a radio signal, beam the signal to a different terminal, and then reconstruct it back into its formal form. You got a Joe Dirt DVD, and then it goes over to the next person, then they have the Joe Dirt DVD. But they actually tried to transfer an item before, but they only got a destroyed version on the other side. Because to provide the energy to even do that in the first place, it had to take energy from the item in order to even transfer it, leaving it destroyed. So sadly, no Joe Dirt DVD. But the only time it successfully happened was with a vinyl record of Oh You Were Foolin' by Russell Morgan. After this, the terminals began to play the song, which can still be heard in the elevators today. They say the terminals only play the parts of the songs with the vocals in front of certain people. I remember when I first played the game, I thought it was just playing an old song because I thought that with the war escalating to the point that it did, I thought people just stopped making music. But honestly, learning the true detail of this, it ended up being one of my favorite small facts of this game. After the Hell expeditions were shut down after the surface lost communication with the explorers, humanity was extinct, and the terminals were abandoned in Hell with no new input. Being that they only played the vocals on the vinyl to certain people already showed they had some sort of sentience. But they started to show a new sign: boredom. With the machines descending down to Hell for fuel, the terminals would play the vinyl to lure machines to them to form a symbiotic relationship. In exchange for combat data, they would trade weapons and upgrades. The terminals would watch and grade these recordings for entertainment. This explains the style meter in the mission rankings. The terminals reward more entertaining machines with higher points. and the points are used as currency for new gear. They find suffering and violence amusing, so it's safe to say that hell influenced them as they were waiting for a new input. Shifting our focus back to the full death of humanity, the vast amount of machines and souls coming into hell, the wrath layer of hell, the river of Styx, got so full that the ferrymen were overwhelmed. The ferryman couldn't take on such a big task. Keep in mind that there was only one ferryman at a time. To become one, they have to get their hand on a cloth, and this cloth is bathed in holy light that was made by God. They strip their own flesh off of their bodies, leaving behind their skeleton, and the cloth makes them more powerful than your standard husk, and their skeleton is given that radiant blue color. The ferryman is civil. When you eventually come across him, you could just throw him a coin to avoid his fight entirely. They have a deep devotion to the role. Reading his diary, you could come across that they are loyal even though they were basically abandoned by God and can't ascend, forever damning them to hell. When they're defeated by another wanting to take their place, their skulls are used as keys to different parts of hell, which is how V1 gets around hell in locked away areas. After all the souls cease from coming in from extinction of mankind, the ferrymen lost their purpose of their role and wander around the layers of hell. According to the ferryman's diary, at one point, the ferryman was drowning in the overwhelming darkness and chaos of the Styx, until Gabriel appeared, emanating radiant light to save him. And he did. Gabriel had mercy for the ferryman. At some point, the ferryman modified small demons into divine-looking statues, into a holy being holding a baby. But because they're so small, they're unable to move. The ferryman made them this way as a tribute to Gabriel. And because of this, Gabriel, knowing the council of angels would destroy them for their blasphemous form, he never told anyone about their existence. These small demons were around the ferryman for so long, the holy light seeped into them, giving them power to project holy beams, making whoever they project them on shielded from attacks. With Gabriel saving the ferryman, protecting his creations, and then giving him purpose again by making him the guardian of hell from the invading machines, the ferryman made shrines and a hologram on his boat, showing his turned devotion from the vanished god to Gabriel. After the victories Gabriel had, his status was lifted as the appointed judge of hell, basically taking King Minos' role. He then worked to hold together the existence after the death of God. What followed all of this praise, Gabriel began to become arrogant. He believed himself to be the indestructible warrior of the heavens, viewing himself to be the sole right hand of the Father, watching us as we descend down to hell, burning with hatred for V1 and the machines for creating such a mess, leading to what is...
Machine, I will cut you down, break you apart, slay the core of your profane form across the stars. I will grind you down until the very sparks cry for mercy. My hands shall relish ending you here and now.
Thank you so much for watching the video, and I really hope if you haven't played it yet, you guys play the game. If you guys enjoy this video, I can make a video about the events that happen within the game, but for now, this is where it is. For a game that's so loved by its own developers, should be loved by more people. Also, for the people that have been waiting for about 2 years, I'm sorry. The 3D model is going to come in, but for now, I'm going to be using these stills. So while we wait, I want you guys to thank Couch. He's put a lot of work into my model, and he's learning how to animate. For only really messing with Blender for about 2 years, he's doing a lot. So until then, we're going to be using these. So thank you again, and see ya. By the way, something came across my desk.